On this episode, we talk with Sayum Bussell, scientist, mom, ex-BMX aficionado, and all-around badass woman. We chat about finding motivation amongst life's hardships and finding opportunities to grow given the cards we are dealt. Oh, and also earwax, 90s trends, and filter tips. We hope you all enjoy this one. It was a ton of fun. This is A Few Choice Words, the Fueled by Choice podsnack, a tasty morsel of inspiration and stories of choice from some of our favorite humans in the world.
I can't even keep a pair of sunglasses for more than a week. So,
oh god, yeah.
Let alone AirPods.
I'd be down to like share my AirPods with people, but I always have so much earwax on them. Like it's so nasty.
Come on, it's only natural.
Have you tried any of those candles?
No, I haven't. I want to do that actually. I want to go to like an audiologist and have that. I don't know. I've had some.
That's a perfect quarantine activity.
I know. I've had some ringing in my ears lately, and it's probably just because I listened to loud music a lot and played in bands and stuff. But I wonder if there's something in there. Like I always see those YouTube videos of people pulling out like a ton of wax. I'm like, that looks really satisfying.
It does. It's like ASMR, but with ears.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that the thing? Is that the thing where you light it? It's like, it's a flame, right?
Yeah.
And it pulls it. I've done that before. The relief is awesome. It's amazing.
Really?
Yeah, it feels good too.
I'd want to do it.
It's kind of awkward too, because you hear like the crackling in your ear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting really warm, and then you know when you see it all the wax, you're like, oh my god.
What else is my body that I don't know about?
Right, seriously.
So we were kind of talking about how like this is totally full circle. Like January 27th of last year, you did the feature for our website, which is so like thorough and in depth and awesome to read again. We were just thinking how crazy it is. Like we're moving towards that time last year when the pandemic started and like we were starting to get the brand rolling and everything. So thanks for being one of our first guests.
Oh, no, I was like totally on board for doing this. I really kind of support what you guys are doing. And I honestly wanted to do something similar to this on my own, but you guys kind of beat me to the punch. I always thought that, you know, being a person that has had a lot of interesting life events happen to them, you know, people will sometimes ask me, how did I get here and not end up like dead in a ditch somewhere?
Right.
But I really do believe in, you know, the aspect of positivity, and, you know, you can kind of go two different ways in life, right? Mm-hmm. You can either be a victim of circumstance or you can do something about it. And I've kind of always been a big proponent of, okay, stuff's always going to happen. So, I mean, it's kind of your perspective. You know, how are you going to live it? So I really wanted to get that message out to people for a long time because, you know, you see so many individuals who have just a hard time with life. And I really kind of want to be a proponent for that. So I do really appreciate what you guys are doing. And I think it's a really good message.
Awesome. Thanks for the kind words.
Yeah.
So you talk about some of those hardships that you had growing up and how you kind of like blossomed from that. Do you want to touch on some of those for us?
Yeah. I mean, looking back on my life, I guess I've never really fit in. And one of the things that was always tried and true is that I had a good dad, right? He was the best. Mm-hmm. Never missed a soccer game. Taught me how to sell when I was like 4. I used to sling manicure sets with him on the side of the road at sidewalk sales.
That's awesome.
But he was in the bath industry. So he was the innovator of like the matching waste baskets, matching shower curtains, matching toothbrush holder. And he worked with individuals like Martha Stewart. So he was pretty successful in what he did. But he started off as nothing as well. So he grew up in Brazil, Indiana, and he used to steal coal off a train to keep warm. Wow. And it was going from circumstances like that to being extremely successful. So I had a really good foundation for being who I am now because of him. And so even though when I was younger and having these trials and tribulations, I had this really good role model of, you know, perspective. And then he died, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, I mean, people will still apologize to me about it. It was 20 years ago. I mean, it's a long time ago. I've gotten over it. But at the same time, I've been able to look back on the 11 years I had with them. I'm like, oh gosh, don't even apologize. Some people don't even have that amount of love in their lifetime, let alone the 11 years that I had with them. I'm lucky. And do I miss him? Absolutely. But I'm living my life in respect to him now. And so instead of being like, oh, there'll be times where I say I miss my dad, and I will be sad about it. But most of the times I live my days doing the things I'm doing because of the influence that he kind of gave to me. And I would say that was probably the biggest trial and tribulation is his passing, because he was such a big person in my life. But again, I was able to try to take that sorrow and turn it into something positive. How
old were you when he passed away?
11.
11. Wow.
It was on Halloween.
Halloween.
My dad, he was like such a person, like, enigma. Of course, he couldn't leave the world on a normal day.
Yeah.
You can't forget me. You have to remember me now. But, after he died, I was kind of left to raise myself. My mom was trying to raise 4 kids, and it's hard enough losing your husband, let alone, having to deal with 3 surly boys and myself.
Are you the youngest?
Oh yes, I'm the baby.
Oh, so you had 3 older brothers to deal with.
This is
terrible.
My mom had 3 older brothers too, and she tells me stories about like getting thrown down the steps and like just the abuse she faced and having to stand up for herself, and it means a lot to go through that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my brothers are twins too, so when when my dad was still alive, they ended up throwing a pop can at me, and I had to get stitches because of it.
Oh, geez.
And yeah, so it is a full one too, not empty.
Dang.
So my dad goes to be like, "Who is it?" My brothers just pointed at each other, and so then they both got grounded. And that was pretty much like, how they treated me throughout my entire life with them. But no one else can pick on me though. It's only them.
Right.
So
they're protective. Yeah.
Yeah, they're protective. But they like to mess with me too. So I think that kind of helps growing up in a scenario like that. Although when I was a kid, I hated them and just how they treated me. But now I'm super, I don't know, I guess nothing can really faze me.
Yeah. You have thick skin.
Yeah. I mean, in some aspects, in other aspects, I'm really, really sensitive. So,
sure.
But I mean,
when you're, at 11 years old, obviously that's such a unique time in everyone's life. When, your father passed away, were you having any like existential thoughts about life itself and like kind of where things were heading, like confusion? Like, what was that experience for you? If you don't mind talking about it.
Oh, no, I don't. I'm very open about it. When I don't think I really understood what was happening, because my dad was older and it was a slow decline. Mm-hmm. I used to have to do his blood glucose readings at 8. So I didn't know that he was not managing his diabetes very well.
Was he type 1 or 2?
2. But
okay.
the thing is that like usually when you look at a type 2 diabetic, everyone I think automatically goes to, oh, they're obese. Oh, they're unhealthy. Yeah. But he just he didn't look like he was, but try to tell a man from the Great Depression what to eat.
Yeah.
Because he was born in 1929. Food was power.
Mm-hmm.
And that I didn't really realize that or understand that until I got much older, and I was in a class. It was I think it was epidemiology. Mm-hmm. And I kind of had almost an existential crisis then, because I was mad at him for a while, right? Like, well, why couldn't you just take better care of yourself?
Yeah.
But looking back on it, it was very psychological. And, if you're trying to tell someone that didn't have any food when they were growing up, what they can and can't eat, it must have been very hard for him. And I think at that point, as an adult in my early 20s, I was finally able to understand what exactly happened to him and why. There is a lot of psychology behind that. That I'm not an expert in, but I was finally able to understand it. And when I was a kid, I just knew he was gone. And I think there was like this thing in the back of my head thinking that he'd come back eventually, which is sad for, a little girl. But, I had a lot of support with my oldest brother, he came back to raise me. Even though I still kind of was left alone, but, I don't think that I ever really thought about it like as a complete loss. Cause I've always felt him around, like, day to day, not like spiritually, I would say, but just, he put so much time and effort into me that I felt like I was living on, that he was living on through me.
Well, you're living a life, as you alluded to earlier. You're living a life in tribute to him, and that's just that's a beautiful way to go about it and think about it. He's always with you because of your lifestyle choices, and that's great.
Yeah, it's like I think constant underlying. I was just saying it's a constant underlying motivational factor in your life. I mean, we all have them in some way, but obviously that's an extremely powerful one. And even from our last interview a year ago, you can really see that in how you've gone about your life.
I mean, I try to, do the right thing and be a, I guess, morally directed individual. Not saying that I'm perfect, but I would say at least through my entire life, I've always tried to make the right choice. And I think like when there is a huge misconception around death and people talking about death, and it's such a huge negative connotation that when, you talk about the person, you're looking for sympathy or sorrow, or it's a sad subject, because I've had multiple people tell me like, oh, I don't want to hear about your dead dad anymore. I'm like, oh, wow. All right, well, this is just my way of like remembering him. It's not, I'm not looking for any sympathy. Like the only way I can keep, his memory alive is by remembering him. So if you don't want me to talk about him, that's not really fair.
Yeah, it's so interesting how you mentioned just, I feel like our culture, death is such a taboo subject, but, in other cultures it's celebrated. And I kind of hear that in how you speak about him. Like you're celebrating the life that he had, and it's living through you as well. And it's a beautiful thing. And it's super cool to hear you talk about that with confidence. And I mean, fuck everyone else, right? I mean,
right.
That's just the way it is.
I mean, like, I know what I'm doing is not for sympathy. It's more so like, that's how I kept him alive. And, some people will cope with it in different ways. So some people won't talk about it at all. Some people want to talk about it, and some people will be a happy middle, but everyone handles grief very differently. And I think that it's, really, it's really impersonal, and it's really insensitive to tell someone how they can handle it.
100%.
And so, I think the best thing that someone could ever do for someone, whether they be a child or, an adult, is tell someone it's okay to talk about them and that they're there to listen. And yeah, so that was kind of like what started me off on my, eternal swan song of trying to, do the best in spite of circumstances. So
initially you went to school to be a doctor, right?
Yeah. I wasn't quite sure what type of doctor I wanted to be. I think I was kind of borderline on like dermatologist or physical therapist. I didn't make up my mind yet. And I just got accepted into a program for undergrad and found out I was pregnant. So I was like, oh man, what am I going to do with just a bachelor's in kinesiology with an emphasis in epidemiology? And I remember sitting in my my professor's office being like, okay, what can I do with a bachelor's degree? Like, how much money do you think I can make? and she's like, don't plan on making more than 30 grand a year. I'm like, oh, that's really cool to tell a 6-month pregnant woman, but all right.
Jeez.
I hope I can make money. And and so like I think what's really important for people to do is be creative. She's right. She was right when she said that most people with that degree won't do much outside of be a physical therapist assistant or something to that magnitude. But I was like, okay, what can I do? What can I do with this? How can I make money? And so I did something completely different, and I ended up being a civilian contractor at the Marine Corps, which always looks good on a resume. And I helped injured Marines get back to combat readiness. So doing something different and outside the box kind of set me up for my first position at Blue Cross, which wasn't my ideal job. I mean, I was in marketing at Blue Cross. I've never been a marketer in my life.
I love marketing. I went to school for
I really
branding.
do too. I like it. I mean, I like it now, but I was like, I don't know what I guess it's going to work. And I just needed the experience. So I think it's important to, if it's not your dream job, just get the experience and eventually we'll get there. I'm now in my third position and I'm marketable now. I have recruiters calling me now. So it's kind of taking that time to do something you don't want to do in order to get somewhere you want to be and do want to do. So I know that was an acceleration from, college to my career, but there was a lot that happened between that. So I had to kind of give a short synopsis of it. But as far as how I got to where I'm at,
what was it like working with, Marines? What's
they're really respectful. Actually, I was surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I have this negative connotation, like going and hanging out in the bars in Temecula, California, because that's where I lived. And I was like, oh, Marines, meh.
Mm-hmm.
But they were actually really respectful to me. I did have some instances where it was really sad, actually. I had to tell Marines essentially that they couldn't do their job anymore after they were evaluated, and we would do exercises with them over obviously a extended period of time. And 6 months passes and you're not gonna be able to go back to work, and they'd have to get discharged.
It reminds me of in my job, I'm a nurse, and it's like the physicians are typically the ones that society thinks will break the bad news about a diagnosis or not being able to go back to work or whatever it may be. And it's the nurses and the people that are actually working with the patients that end up having those conversations. And that's what it reminds me of when you are working with these people. That stuff's going to come up and you're going to have to be the bearer of bad news. And it's something they don't really tell you when you're going through school.
No.
But it's a cool skill to have, I guess, like preparedness for that.
Well, and if you're a people pleaser, it's like the worst thing to have to do too.
That's true. That's true.
I'm like, but I like giving good news.
I know. You can't always give good news though.
I know.
It's a nice lesson.
I know.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I give you so much credit for having to tell people that sort of stuff. That's tough for me.
It's a tough job.
Well, it's definitely something, and correct me if I'm wrong, that like you think about all week having to do it. It's like anxiety producing. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to ruin this person's life. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Wow.
Because most of those guys would be not. I'm not gonna say all of them because obviously not everyone goes in the Marines and stays there, but there's a good proportion of them that would have been lifers.
Sure.
Well, they're very driven people too, and it's a very like leave no man behind scenario, and they want to get back out there, and I totally understand that. That's what's ingrained in them, and it's got to be hard.
I mean, it's cool now because even that was like when did I do that? 12 years ago? No, not 12 years ago. 8 years ago, and I'll still tell people that like I worked at PH Fieldhouse at Camp Pendleton, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, PH Fieldhouse." Like they'll still want to talk to you about it. So anytime I meet a Marine somewhere, I'm like, "Oh, where were you stationed?" It still creates conversation, which is cool. It's been 8 years.
So what are you? What are you focusing on nowadays? You're in
COVID.
All right, we like that. Onwards and upwards, right?
I mean, I feel like every scientist is now. We're all like, I'm not in the research realm of it. I'm more in the lab supply portion of it at this point in time. I had a non-compete with my last company, so I had to do something a little bit different for a couple of years in order to be able to ride out that non-compete. But but I actually kind of like what I'm doing now. But going back to that, laboratory consultant. So I'll go in, look at their process flow, try to optimize it and streamline it, tell them what kind of filtration they should be using, water systems, micro, anything that could be of benefit to optimizing what they're doing at the current moment.
Is this for like the reagent for the PCR tests or for vaccines?
I mean, I also sell tips too, which don't even get me started on that. I mean, it's filter tips. So, okay. You'll use filter tips in any sort of research to prevent cross-contamination.
Yeah.
And now those are the tips that are being used for COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So in every supplier of filter tips, the demand has gone up, I would say like 300, 400%.
Wow.
And every supplier is having supply and demand issues. So we're on a 4-month back order. I'm having to like get creative with clients, telling them, hey, how long can you secure a PO for? Can we do 2 years? Because that'll move you up the supply chain. Like, it is bad. And so not only is this impacting COVID, this is going to be impacting any other research realm that's going to be using filtered tips.
Yeah, it's a trickle down effect. It's stuff you don't think about.
It's insane. Filter tips are like gold right now. So if you have them,
yeah, I need to get my hands on some filter tips. I think we can make some money.
Probably sell them for a lot of money somewhere.
I'll keep my eyes open.
People are starting to get desperate. We'll have these conversations with clients. They'll be like, "Listen, it's going to be a long lead time, but once now that you have a standing PO, once you get your order in, it'll start flowing a little bit better."
Maybe
they'll call me like 2 weeks later and be like, "Where are my tips?" I'm like, I said 3 months.
Maybe we can set something up on our store where we'll have merchandise and tips.
Yeah. We can call it just the tips.
Oh, yes. I love a good joke like that. You beat me to it. I'll insert it. That's what she said somewhere in here.
Yeah.
There it is right there.
We're throwing in.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about your BMX life. Because that's another awesome thing that is very, it's super cool. Like when you told us about that, you have such a dynamic life. So do you still ride at all, or is it something like distant past thing now?
I mean, I'll do it once in a while. I don't do it as much anymore because I value my fingers.
Sure.
And I was more geared towards flatland, which isn't as dangerous inherently in comparison to park or dirt. Flatland's like the 80s style, the kind of gymnastics on a bike. You see people going around in circles, and it's very flat land. You don't really go on jumps, but I can ride a skate park. I can ride street.
You call it 80s style?
Yeah, it's more 80s style.
That's cool. So really quick, what would be like 90s style?
Oh man. Like dirt tracks, like racing.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, I like that. That was my specialty. Now I don't necessarily do it because I'm trying not to break my fingers, as I said, because I'm on my computer all the time. If I mess up my hand or my wrist, it's, it really impacts me because I have to be on my computer, interacting with clients. So, I mean, I want to do it more, but I kind of have to have that self-talk. Like, okay, do I really want to dislocate a finger?
So I haven't rode a bike enough to know this, but like, I would think if you're falling, like wearing a wrist protector would be a good idea, but you can't really grip the handlebars that way. Is that the idea?
I don't think
falling
I've ever
is
worn a wrist protector, honestly.
Yeah.
I think it would just be like, it's totally a clout thing.
Yeah.
It's or a pride as well. Like, I'm not going to go to the skate park and wear a wrist guard. I'm too cool for too cool for that.
No, I hear you.
I will wear a helmet though.
I will wear a helmet though. That's good. You got to protect that noggin.
CTE is a real thing.
Seriously.
But it was such a great time in my life. I still have a ton of friends in it. I would like to ride more. I have this internal debate about it. So, yeah, I mean, I value the friendships that I made in it. I'll always go to like events and contests and what have you. Still very involved in the scene, just not riding as much anymore.
Does your son ask you to ride, or does he ride actually?
Oh, yeah, he has a BMX bike now. My friend actually found an old DK, like early 2000s bike in a dump somewhere, and he ended up picking it up for my son, and now that's what he rides. So I'm like, this DK bike was really cool back, in early 2000s.
That's awesome. Hey, I mean, you got to start on something.
Yeah. And I don't know if he'd like it or not. So he's shredding, not really shredding, but he thinks he is. Rides his bike to his friend's house. He's like, I can't wait till it's summer and I can ride my bike to Emmett's house. I'm like, yeah, me too. It's nice to share that with him, though. He thinks mom's cool when she's on her bike.
Oh yeah, I mean, come on.
Well, I actually went I took him to the skate park. I took him to Modern, and this was before he was even riding bikes. I wanted him to just get like acclimated to a skate park environment. He was riding a scooter, and so I actually went into the skate park with him and was kind of sitting back and being like, "Okay, all right, buddy, see across there. Okay, see that person just went. Now it's your turn." Kind of like a 4-way stop situation. Mm-hmm. Skate park etiquette's a big thing, and I don't think a lot of parents teach their kids that at all. So, I was the mom up in there, like, I don't want to say it's micromanaging, but I think it's important for safety for his and the riders and skateboarders there. So
it reminds me of, I played hockey for a long time, and I would do like drop-ins where random people would show up and, play hockey essentially, but sometimes there weren't enough people to actually play a pickup game. And it reminds me of people would just be shooting pucks all over the place, and they wouldn't think. You get like a new guy in there who's like, he's played for a little while, but he doesn't get like the rink etiquette, and he's winding up for a slap shot when you're going to grab a puck. And it's pickup hockey, so you're not wearing like a cage on your helmet and stuff. So that's what that reminds me of. But there's always the one old salty dog that steps in, kind of sets the rules, and it's important. Like, I totally understand that.
Oh yeah, he would get yelled at. Like it will eventually happen by some 30-year-old bike rider. like, and so I'm like, I'd rather be in there and like teach him how to do it versus him getting hurt or hurting someone else or getting yelled at. So I feel like people treat the skate park now as like it's like their babysitter, and that's not necessarily how it should go, because it can be dangerous if you're not watching out. And so he liked it when he went there, and it was weird for me to kind of not be on a bike and kind of just sitting back and watching him.
I bet.
But he did pretty good. Yeah.
That's cool. Wow.
I'm happy that he's doing something that I enjoy. We can kind of share it together.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you ever, when you're at the skate park, do you ever see like people on bikes doing tricks and you're like, I probably would have done a little bit better there?
Well, no one does what I do. I mean, there's not a ton of people that do flatland. So it's, there's only a handful. And every time I start doing it, people start kind of getting thrown back, because it's, the way X Games and tricks are going now, it's like the bigger, the better. This is more intricate. And it still impresses people. Flatland
is like I remember watching it. It's like the dance, right? Where you actually have to spin the wheel with your opposite foot. And yeah, that's awesome stuff. It's a lot of balance. And I remember enjoying watching that. But I haven't seen it on TV in a while.
Bringing back the 80s. It's going to come back. Just like everything else from the 80s is coming back. Maybe I should ride with my Doc Martens on or something. Well, that's more 90s, but you know what I mean?
Isn't that shit crazy? Just how the 90s are coming back, and for us, obviously, I mean, I was born in 88, but I know everything about the 90s.
Yeah.
But just seeing the Gen X, the little kids, and they're sporting 90s stuff, and that shit is so wild to me, because when I was in high school, or Drew and I were in high school, our age group was kind of sporting the 70s stuff, like the hippie stuff at the time. Because it was cool. It was like, hey, this happened 30 years ago. And he forgets, like, oh, yeah, 30 years ago was the 90s.
Well, I mean, no, their bell bombs are coming in apparently again. Someone told me the other day.
What?
Like flares.
I swear to God, was the middle part that's coming back?
Yeah.
That was 90s, right?
I think, yeah. Should we bring back butterfly clips too?
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
I want Janko jeans.
And bowl haircuts.
Yes,
Yeah. I want a bowl haircut.
Yeah.
I just think you should get as big of pants, the circumference at the bottom as you possibly can.
Totally. I saw my friend Kate posted a picture of a Tamagotchi, and I'm like, I remember having like 5 of those and going to the beach as a kid, and my parents would watch them for us when we went in the water, and like it was totally like they got so mad because we neglected our Tamagotchis. But like now I would really care for one if I had one.
I think you could probably find that somewhere.
Probably.
eBay, Poshmark. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I got to get on that. I need filter tips and a Tamagotchi.
Yeah, you can put that in the store.
So what do you have?
And basically what?
I was just going to ask, what kind of stuff do you have coming up in the future?
Oh gosh. As
like,
far as work,
what are you focused on now? Like passionately, other than raising your son, obviously.
That's a good question. I've started painting, which apparently I'm pretty good at, and I didn't know. So I'm doing that. And then travel. I'd like to do some more trips. I took a solo trip by myself to Denver over Christmas, and that was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
I think city. I love it. I loved it. And funny thing is that I rented a car because I didn't want to put the miles on my car. Mm-hmm. And they were like, I get there and they're like, well, we don't have the model that you ordered, but do you want the Hemi? I'm like, is that a question? Of course I want the Hemi. So I ended up getting a free upgrade to the Challenger, and I drove that all the way from Detroit to Denver.
That's a long trip.
Oh yeah.
But you had a Hemi, so you're all good.
Yeah.
I was all about it. I was making Dale Earnhardt jokes the entire time.
Oh yeah.
like you hear that? That's a Hemi.
And you were listening to the 90s music, I hope.
Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, it was mostly pop punk, but
hey, we're all about that. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's some Day to Remember in there, maybe some
nice.
Spill Canvas, really trying to get back to my roots and, mid 2000s, early 2000s,
Oh, that makes me want to roll the windows down and just scream.
Yeah.
Like in a good way.
Yeah. So I'm trying to travel more and do some solo trips by myself. I think that's very, I guess, rejuvenating, because I used to travel a lot for work. Well, been on a travel ban for a year. So I'm getting to a point where I need to get out of here.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are at that point.
And driving's cool because you're, minimizing contact to people, and there's a lot of cool places that you can go. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking New Orleans. I want to drive down there. Might be my next venture. And then I don't know. I feel like we're all in the state of just kind of pause, and I'm not entirely sure outside of work what I'm going to do next. That's a good question.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're optimistic and focusing on yourself and your own wellness and health and everything. And that's if that's it, that's cool too.
I mean, my life has always been so busy, especially when I was working. This kind of state of pause is good for me. Mm-hmm. I know that people, usually want to have all these tasks that they want to accomplish, but my normal world life is very busy. Like, I'll wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I have to drive to Elkhart, Indiana and go for a meeting with a client. Oh, I've got to drive to Grand Rapids and back in a day. And then I'm, coordinating my son, coordinating his childcare. And so I think me just being able to be okay, being still has been a new lesson for me in and of itself. I think it's been a lesson for a lot of people, honestly, during this whole pandemic life, especially because I'm a huge social butterfly.
Yeah, I think everyone learned a little bit about isolation and either the positive or negative effects of it. I love being isolated. I've just always been that way. But I can also understand for someone who is a social butterfly or, is constantly involved with a community of people, to lose that for a long period of time can be pretty devastating to anything really.
Well, and the whole, and obviously you guys can probably appreciate this, is the whole not being able to go to shows thing too. That was a portion of my identity as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been just a new lesson of, okay, what outside of music or BMX or work defines me? Well, I can be a good mom to my son. I can work at my house, a lot of house projects going on, and just kind of take care of myself. I think that I don't think that a lot of people know what self-love looks like. And I'm trying to do a better job learning about that every day. And so it's been nice to kind of just be okay being still. And even though I miss that portion of my life and I can't wait for it to come back, it's been definitely a learning experience for me. I miss going to clients. I miss a lot, but I'm okay. And because of how long it's been now, we're at a year.
Yeah. We're at a year somehow.
And my son's father was gone for a year and a half. So I was solo mom, and he actually just came back from working in Mexico. So I actually have even more time to myself. So I'm like, man, what am I going to do with all this time? Like, he's at his dad's house tonight for dinner. And I'm like, wow. I mean, maybe I'll watch a movie that I want to watch. I don't know. World's my oyster.
Yeah, I recommend watching the movie Soul if you haven't seen it yet.
Oh, that's cute.
It was so good.
Soul,
Yeah.
like soul?
Yeah, it's called Soul. It's a Pixar movie. It's about finding your life's purpose.
That's awesome.
But it's like, I like how it's geared for kids and adults and everything. And there's a music component to it too. Trent Reznor actually did the score for it.
No shit.
Yep. 9 Inch Nails, baby.
That's crazy.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's pretty
I'll have
cool.
to watch it again and pay attention.
Yeah.
Because sometimes my son will put on movies and I'll be like, I'm going to scroll on Pinterest real quick.
I know. It's so hard to not get distracted.
Yeah, I mean, tell me about it.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. I always say podcast. It's podsnack.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's our term for it. But thanks for joining us.
it.
It's been so cool to kind of make this full circle.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Of course. And thank you so much for being an early adopter and just kind of sticking by us as we progress as a brand. And we love the support. We appreciate it. And we support you and everything that you do.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. And I'm just glad to have the opportunity to, I guess, spread the positivity that is Sam.
For sure. Before we wrap up, I know you had an answer earlier for what Fueled by Choice means to you, and maybe that has evolved over the past year, but what would be your answer to that?
I would say that being fueled by choice is making the best out of your circumstances. You can either, let the adverse things that occur to you define you, or you can define them. And it's all about, how you perceive it and then how you take action in order to move forward with it. I believe it's a personal adaptation of your environment.
Awesome. I love that nice little package you put it all into. It's perfect.
Thank you. I'm taking a bow. Can't see me, but
well, it was so great talking to you. Hopefully we can connect more in the future. Maybe we'll do another show.
Yeah, I'm always about it. I mean, this is my first one. So I'm now that I've kind of ripped off podcast Band-Aid, I'm here for it.
Yeah, we're excited to get it out there.
You sound like a pro. You sound like a pro.
Oh, do I? I was like, man, I'm afraid I'm going to be talking too fast.
No, you're good. It was great.
Okay. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good rest of your week.
All right, you too.
Bye.